If I went to you 5 years ago and said that in 5 years, you would have a series of events, the biggest and worst riots we've seen in this country in 50 years. Far left extremists would tear down the barricades of the White House, set fire to a guard post in the church across the street. The president would be forced into an emergency bunker underneath. Then later on, several hundred Trump supporters would breach the Capitol during the counting of the Electoral College, which would result in federal agents raiding the homes of people across the country, even innocent people having their homes raided by feds. And ultimately, Donald Trump would not only be indicted in multiple jurisdictions, but the Democrat DOJ would be preparing indictments against his lawyers, and Democrats at the state level would have indicted his lawyers. If I were to tell you all that, you'd tell me I was crazy. I know for a fact because when I said in 2018 that what we are seeing on the ground will eventually find its way to the federal government, I was told that I was crazy. Mike Cernovich says that what we're seeing right now is akin to the massacre of Tsar Nicholas's family in the Bolshevik Revolution. But that happened, I believe that was a couple of years after the actual revolution, or maybe a year or so. Not getting my timelines right on this one, but they brought them, locked them up, and then eventually said, you know what? We can't risk your family surviving, and then massacred his family. Call it whatever you want. You know, we can say that it's a civil war, but I think maybe that's unfair considering that requires multiple factions actually in some kind of opposition to each other. What may actually be happening is more akin to the Bolshevik Revolution, but call it whatever you want. Democrats in various jurisdictions are using the weight of government to attack their political rivals to the extent that they have now in Georgia, this news came out, it dropped around 1 a.m. or so. They have indicted lawyers for Donald Trump. In fact, one of the lawyers for Trump is actually, at this point, not a big fan of Trump and fairly pro DeSantis. There's a lot to talk about with this. There are many Trump personalities who started changing their tune a few months after January 6th and then a year or so after. They're all of a sudden on board DeSantis, calling Trump a grifter and a con man. Take a look at the statements they made around or before January 6th. When they were saying there was fraud, encouraging people to be active, encouraging people to go down on January 6th. I believe that there are many personalities, lawyers, consultants, social media personalities who knew that because they had advocated for what Trump was trying to do with his legal team, because there are videos of them advocating for action on January 6th, they would find themselves indicted at some point. It's happening. They're going after Trump's lawyers. The next step, likely going to be personalities who were in contact with Donald Trump's legal team, who then took to the airwaves, be it social media, digital or television, terrestrial, and advocated for his plans, his policies, and for people to protest on January 6th. They'll say this was incitement and furtherance of the conspiracy. In Georgia, they're already saying that there are many, many more unindicted co-conspirators. In D.C., they're saying that there are a few unindicted co-conspirators, and we expect they will be indicted soon as well. I don't know where all this goes, but ladies and gentlemen, escalation seems to be the only place it can go. And maybe I'm wrong, and I'd love to be wrong, but every time something happens that's worse than it was a month ago, I say it seems like it'll get worse. I don't know what you call this period where Democrats in multiple jurisdictions are targeting the home of the former president, and his lawyers, anyone who represented him. We already know with the J6ers, many lawyers dropped them as clients or refused to take them on in the first place. So let's talk about all of that and a bit more. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com because in these trying times, we're still selling products. Hey, if you want to support the show, we sell coffee. We sponsor ourselves. We make our own coffee. It's Cast Brew Coffee. We got a great commercial starring Ian Crossland. Look at his eyes. They're glowing because he loves that coffee. You can join the Cast Brew Coffee Club, ground or mixed, 3 bags per month. We got a bunch of different blends. We got light, dark, medium, and we have K-Cups available. So one way to support the work that we do, and it seems rather silly to be talking about it considering the severity of what we're saying, but hey, buy our coffee. Also, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support us directly while you still can. As a member, you'll get access to our uncensored members-only shows. We'll have one of those up for you tonight at 10 p.m. after we wrap up the public live portion. We jump over to the website. And as members, you actually can submit questions and talk to us and our guests. So do so. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the URL to this video if you like the work that we do and you want to help out in another way. Word of mouth is the most powerful way to help podcasts grow. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Conservative Amped.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a social media political comedian, I guess you will. TikTok, Instagram, all the platforms. I also advocate for protecting children in anti-grooming with Gays Against Groomers. Been part of that for quite some time. And also sex trafficking in general, trying to bring awareness to it. So, yeah, wear many hats.
Right on. Well, thanks for hanging out. It should be fun.
Thank you. Thanks.
We got Phil.
How you doing? I am Phil Labonte, lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains, anti-communist and counter-revolutionary.
Anti-communist. You got your work cut out for you now.
I mean, there's just so many commies around nowadays. Like 12 years ago or 10 years ago, something like that, I wrote this op-ed complaining about Tom Morello because he's a commie. And everyone's like, oh, no, he's not. Or are you sure? And blah, blah, blah. Now, if I wrote that and was like, oh, he's a commie, everyone's like, well, obviously. And it's like, people need to, we need to... Go ahead, Ian.
So you think
I'll go on and on and on?
Because I'm concerned with anti something. Because I don't know what you are, but
liberal. I'm a liberal. I believe in the Enlightenment philosophy. I believe that we can know reality. I believe that the truth does not change from person to person. People will see things differently, but what is true is true. So
it's part of what makes instruments phenomenal in science is that we don't have to rely on someone to tell us what the result was. We have an instrument to decide or show us all. I am Ian Crossland, and I am drinking the pumpkin spice latte mix now.
It's light.
It is delicious. I put some peanut butter powder and coconut water in, and it tastes like Reese's Pieces cups.
Ooh.
What's up, homies?
Pieces.
Nice. Let's get down and dirty, dog. Oh, earlier today I did a Twitter space with Zach Voorhees. We talked about AI and God. It was fascinating. It's on my Twitter page, but watch this show, and the link's on my page. I'll tell you about it later again. Hey, Serge.
What's up? I will definitely check that out. I'm Serge.com. Yeah.
One final thing.
Okay.
I did an X space with the dude that owns SpaceX. You think that was intentional when he bought it, when he renamed it?
You just wanted to do it because it was that.
That was my
Isn't
mind
the guy
was
that
blown.
owns SpaceX Elon Musk?
Yep. The one and only. He owns X.
Okay, so
Does space.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into this first story. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from Reuters. Georgia charges Trump and former advisors in 2020 election case. Hey, hold on there a minute, Reuters. Those were lawyers, not advisors. I guess you can technically say that they were advisors because they gave him legal advice as lawyers, but that's constitutionally protected. What does Michael Malice call this? Factual but not truthful? Yes, it's factual. They advised him, but they're lawyers. Former U.S. President Donald Trump was hit with a sweeping fourth set of criminal charges on Monday when a Georgia grand jury issued an indictment accusing him of efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss to Democrat Joe Biden. It's a 98 indictment listing 19 defendants and 41 criminal counts. Now, last night we talked about how the Fulton County Court released the indictment against Donald Trump prematurely, took it down, called it a fictitious document, then denied it. Now what they're saying it was a sample document and it accidentally got published. It should never have happened. So they lied then or they're lying now, but take your pick. I think it's fairly obvious they were planning to indict Trump, bring these charges against him well before a grand jury was convened. And more importantly, they could have done it years ago. It is being done today for political purposes. I want to show you the indictment and some of the more silly elements of it, but the seriousness of it can be explained right here on the front page. Fulton Superior Court. The state of Georgia versus Donald John Trump. Rudolph Giuliani, who I believe was his lawyer. John Eastman, also a lawyer. Mark Meadows, that was Trump's, who was a chief of staff. That was Mark Meadows. You've got, who else do we have? Kenneth Chaseborough, I believe, was a lawyer. Jeffrey Clark was a State Department attorney. Jenna Ellis was also an attorney. Interestingly, Jenna Ellis has been rather anti-Trump over the past several months, and has been somewhat critical of him now, but also supporting DeSantis. Also, people are pulling up very old posts from her where she was very anti-Trump early on. Ray Smith, Robert Cheeley, Michael Roman, David Schaefer. David Schaefer, that one's actually fairly interesting because he met with an alternate slate of electors, then told the press all that matters is if the court cases proceed, they'll have an alternate slate of electors. For that, he's being criminally charged. Sean Still, Stephen Lee, Harrison Floyd, Trevian Kuti. This is funny because that's Kanye West's publicist. Apparently, she had advocated on behalf of the Trump campaign to an election official that they should pursue an investigation into voting machines. That's a criminal conspiracy. Sidney Powell, yep. Kathleen Latham, who I believe was one of the election officials who opened the door for the Trump campaign in Coffee County. Scott Hall and Misty Hampton, another election official, I believe, opened the door. So what you have here, you have a State Department attorney being criminally charged. You have a series of lawyers being criminally charged.
Mark Meadows was the chief of staff of Donald
He
Trump.
was. You checked?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought I was right. Wanted to be sure, though.
Yeah.
Criminally charged in Georgia. Why? Because of a legal theory pertaining to what the vice president is or isn't allowed to do. Here's my view. Mike Pence does have the authority to reject votes in the electoral vote count. Richard Nixon had done it before. He chose Democrat votes over Republican votes, despite the fact that Democrats were certified. This is 1960. So using that legal theory and precedent, Mike Pence would have been able to do it. Well, Mike Pence didn't do it. There you go. Whatever. You don't got to like the guy. A lot of people don't like the guy, but that's it. They had a legal theory and plan. They asked Mike Pence. He said no. It's over. Now we can see exactly why Mike Pence refused to engage. I'm willing to bet they went to him and said, if you go along with this, you will be arrested, you will be charged, and we will destroy everything about your life. Yeah. The interesting thing is they kept making the argument the vice president had no authority to do this. And then Mike Pence made the mistake of doing a TV interview recently where he said, I could have pushed the votes back and it would have gone to the state, to the House delegations, the House of Representatives. So he knew exactly what his authority and powers were. There were numerous articles written by left-wing personalities and journalists where they explained if Mike Pence rejected electoral votes, then House delegations would vote for the president. That's the normal procedure. So Mike Pence, Democrats, the media, everybody began lying, saying he never had the authority to do so in the first place, which wasn't true. They then changed the laws later on to say, yeah, he can't do that. But at the time he could. So what we were really looking at was nothing criminal, but legal theory. The next people, in my view, who will face criminal indictments, television, media, political, high-level influential personalities who were in communication with Donald Trump or his lawyers, who then went on Twitter, YouTube, Fox News, whatever, and advocated for these election strategies, advocated for legal challenges and to find votes, advocated for the Dominion claims, and additionally, those who encouraged protest on January 6th, and those who cheered on January 6th. There are a lot of people, I'm not going to name them, let this be their own business, that pre-January 6th were cheering, saying, yes, yes, people should go down, and saying that people should engage in certain behaviors. Then January 6th happened. Some people actually cheered on what happened that day on social media, saying, why are people mad about this? You even had leftists. The Gravel Institute cheered for January 6th. Not that they advocated for it. Months go by, a year goes by, and you may notice that some of these personalities became hardcore DeSantis supporters and absolutely anti-Trump. I think there's a very obvious reason why. They were crying and shaking and begging in hopes that if they turn on Trump, the DOJ, the state level prosecutors will overlook them and not criminally charge them. Now, I can't say who necessarily holds those views. I think many of the people who turned on Trump probably felt that way. I'm not going to say I can tell you definitively any of these individuals. I will, however, point out Jenna Ellis, who turned on Trump recently, has been advocating heavily for Ron DeSantis and is now facing criminal charges and is trying to raise money. The sad thing here is that ardent Trump supporters are not the biggest fans of Jenna Ellis now, and so she has no support. She's raised a few $1,000s for her legal defense. I think she deserves a legal defense. But by turning on Trump and trying to go into the DeSantis camp, you're looking at mustering up, 10% of the GOP?
Yeah. But does it matter at this point? Like, if you supported that from the beginning and then you last minute ditch effort to I'm going to support DeSantis in hopes that I'm not going to get in trouble, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter, right?
It's an ancient struggle session tactic to get someone to denounce their own views publicly before you serve their before you take them to sentence. Socrates refused to do it. He spoke the truth until the moment he died. Some people, it is an old battle tactic, an authoritarian tactic to get the crowd, because then you can say, well, they admitted it, so
right.
She whatever.
They're charging them under RICO.
What does that mean exactly?
Criminal enterprise. Saying that it was a criminal organization that was conspiring to engage in illegal behaviors.
I think that is ridiculous. And I mean, the whole thing, in my opinion, is ridiculous. I don't think anybody that's charged Donald Trump is a Republican at all. The entire thing is Democrats, right?
Well, no, didn't they say Jack Smith? Is Jack Smith a Democrat?
I'm not.
They look. You had a Republican go on TV in Georgia and be like, Trump ruined the Republican Party.
Yeah,
you've got neo-party.
You've got tokens,
neocon and uniparty shows. I want to read for you Act 22 of the indictment. They say, on or about the third day of December 2020, Donald John Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump, quote, Georgia hearings now on OANN. Amazing. This was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. Now, a lot of people have said there are a lot of provisions in here about tweeting, and one was insulting Mike Pence, calling him a wimp or something like that, and that these were illegal activities. No. These aren't illegal actions. They are arguing that Trump tweeting proves he was engaged in a conspiracy, that he was advancing his conspiracy by tweeting this.
That's so ridiculous. To attempt to defend yourself or use the legal means at your disposal to try to affect an outcome. Like, the point was that these means were legal to try to say, hey, let's recount, to see if there was some kind of fraud. That's perfectly legal. The fact that they're trying to prosecute, I honestly think the fact that they're trying to prosecute people that were in any way in business with Trump or on Team Trump is essentially boils down to, and this might seem a little hyperbolic, but essentially boils down to the same reason that they just smoked the dude in Utah. I think that the 75-year-old dude that was making threats about the president, they could have wrapped him up. The guy could barely walk. They could have kicked in his door and got him without killing him. They didn't have to drag his body out and leave him laying on the sidewalk. They didn't have to do that. There was an intent there, which is to intimidate the American people or intimidate people that are anti-establishment. And the same thing is going on, I think, for the people that have worked with Donald Trump. They're trying to intimidate people that are anti-establishment, saying, look, if you would help people that are against the establishment, against whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it the deep state or you want to call it the bureaucracy, I don't give a crap what name you put on it. But if you're against that, then we're going to unleash as much effort or as much of attention as it requires to neutralize you. And it's the biggest, most powerful government in history. It can do multiple things at once. Taking care of your issues, they can do that and still do all the same stuff that they have planned. So it's not some kind of problem for them to shut people up or to shut people down or to intimidate people into silence.
Do you think there were any personalities who got visits from Democrats, law enforcement, and were told, you're going to come out against Donald Trump or we're going to come after you?
I'm sure. Probably the bigger personalities, right? I don't think. Pence. Yeah, the big personalities. So, but then it trickles down a little bit too, because then you have the small time, right? Like someone like me who's on Instagram or any of us that are on other social media platforms that, by the way, the Biden administration is using young Gen Z influencers to his advantage where we don't, or where the conservatives don't. But could they go after us too then? Could they go after the little guys? Sure, they do it all the time by banning your accounts.
That's what they're doing. I honestly do think this is all about intimidation. Mm-hmm. I think that the reason that, like I said, that the dude in Utah got smoked, I think the reason they're going after all of the people that were associates of Trump and stuff like that, I think that it's something that the establishment wants. Look, they've said clearly after January 6th, there were former members of the intelligence apparatus. I forget the guy's name. I think it was Brennan was the guy that was on. But he was talking. He's like, anyone that has anti-government opinions or feelings, everyone in America that is right of center to some degree is anti-American or anti-government. right? They want smaller government. Even people that are like establishment, right-leaning people, they're ostensibly smaller government, but like anyone that's like a MAGA person or a libertarian or any kind of anarchist or independents that want to limit the military-industrial complex, or people that want to limit the security state and the surveillance apparatus, all of those people are the enemy of the government now.
But the problem is, I want a healthy government, and if that means it needs to slim down because the government has become obese, I'm okay with the government going on a workout program.
They are not.
You are the
That's the
problem,
problem.
Well, I don't agree. If the government wants to preserve itself, it needs to take itself seriously and restructure itself.
But it's
from
got
time
the
to time.
guns.
That's why we need to restructure from time to time
That's
as a unit.
How do we do that?
Well, Vivek Ramaswamy suggests that we cut the FBI. I think it's the FBI, and then send a lot of the, fire a lot of the administrative guys, but then move a lot of the necessary pieces to other parts of government, Homeland Security, CIA, Department of Energy. He has it listed, in fact, and I retweeted it. It's on Twitter. I'd love to point you to it.
I'm on the same page with you, homie.
Vivek is great. Like I think that he's a great candidate, and I
But
think
nobody
that
can say his name.
The Cake
Vivek-
Man. We got to
Vivek?
call him the
Vivek.
Cake Man because it's Vivek like cake. We got to call him the Cake Man, so that'll stick
But
to get people to remember.
anybody that runs or anybody that has an opposing opinion from it, this is my opinion, from this current administration or the left, is automatically just, they're like, no, because they've now thrown out all these racist, homophobic, xenophobic, like all these words. If you're for some reason anti-government, we're seeing it now that people are thinking that the American flag makes you racist, and like it's a never-ending no matter who you are. If you come out against the current administration, you're wrong, whether it's Vivek. Sorry about that, Vivek.
He forgives you.
Yes, thank you. Or anybody else. They're even doing it to Kennedy, and he's one of them.
It's important to remember that anti-government and smaller government is not the same thing. You need a healthy government, and sometimes it needs to be smaller or larger to make it healthy. But if you love your government, you want it to be the healthiest it can be, and that means sometimes slimming down the bloat.
Well, I don't
Swear.
love the government. What's to love about the government?
Yeah, not really.
It's a chance for us to coordinate national defense and protect each other,
It's military.
and economic, transportation.
Obviously, I'm as a libertarian kind of leaning kind of guy. I want the smaller government. So as much cutting as you can do, I'm going to be down with. So
Yeah,
Let me
start. Oh yeah,
I want to show you a few examples. So we did get a super chat. Virtual Rifle says, read Act 156. There's a handful of acts in this in furtherance of the conspiracy. One of them is a good example, Act 156. Donald John Trump committed the felony offense of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer when he said to Brad Raffensperger, a public officer, quote, decertify, he said, I want to make sure I'll just read it. Public officer, he asked him to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of oath by public officer by unlawfully, quote, decertifying the election or whatever the correct legal remedy is and announce the true winner in willful and intentional violation of the terms of the oath of said person as prescribed by law. That's probably the perfect example of what this is. Donald Trump said to the Secretary of State, engage in the correct legal remedy for what is going on. And that is a violation of your oath of office or solicitation of a violation of oath of office to ask someone to enact correct legal remedies.
In fact, he said, do a thing, which may or may not have been legal, or the correct legal remedy. Meaning, if the thing was illegal, you instead do the correct legal remedy. So how is asking someone to do a legal remedy illegal?
Because they are just indicting. It's indictments don't matter. As we've pointed out time and time again, women aren't legally allowed to skydive in Florida on Sunday. Ain't no woman's getting arrested for that.
right.
Disorderly conduct. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen
Define
people
it in the moment.
engaged in free speech be criminally charged with disorderly conduct. That's a charge they can slap on anyone for any reason at any time. And then they can arrest you, remove you, and then maybe you go to court and you say, Your Honor, I was just speaking, and the judge says, okay, you're free to go, but you still got locked up. If you don't get bail, you could be in there for a month or longer. If you get locked up on the weekend, on a Friday, you're there over the weekend.
That sounds what you just read about that of him asking a guy to do the legal remedy, and then they're saying that what he did was illegal by asking that guy to do a legal thing. I still don't understand that. And maybe that's because there's something in there that was
Here's another
untoward.
good one. Byron York says, it has to lead to an illegal act eventually, doesn't it? Look at David Schaefer, GA GOP chair. He meets with Trump, quote, electors, December 14th, 2020, explains to the press that electors are contingent on Trump winning a lawsuit, and that is forgery, false statement, and impersonating a public officer. That's what they're charging him with. Alternate electors have been done before. This is the Democrats just basically saying, we will do whatever we want and we will crush you. And right now, what are we getting from Republicans in the GOP? Angry tweets.
That's it.
Angry tweets.
It's
I'm looking forward to getting a monitor in here because I gotta read this.
So, and they want this to go all the way up. You know, they want to prolong this for as long as possible because ultimately they don't want Trump to.
the Republicans.
Well, maybe both.
They want to preserve order, that's for sure. Sorry.
The Democrats definitely want Trump, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of faith in Trump's ability to win. Like, if he's the nominee, I'll vote for him. I'm going to vote for whoever's not the Democrat, not Biden. But like, I don't see that he's going to make a whole lot of, especially with all of the indictments. I don't see that he's going to be bringing a lot of people over.
You don't think that this motivates people more to want to vote for him?
Not people that don't already kind of like him. If you're not somewhat sympathetic to Trump already, if you weren't, I don't think this is making people sympathetic to him now.
I don't think it's sympathetic to Trump per se. I think it's more of a, at this point, it's like, okay, because he's being indicted all these times, I'm going to vote for it. I don't know. I feel like it's a mind thing.
I don't think that you're wrong. I think there are people that do feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's enough to win the presidency.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
fair.
my opinion.
I mean, there is no right and wrong, I guess, answer, but
Well, I mean, we can't know. You
Yeah,
can't know
obviously.
until the election.
Yeah.
But I personally don't feel like I feel like there are people that strongly want Trump, and there are people that are always going to be committed to Trump. I just don't know that there. I don't know that there are enough people that would go over to Trump that have been in the middle. I just don't know. I don't know who that voter, the undecided voter that goes over is. I don't know.
I've it's really funny. There are a lot of people who are terminally online, and these activists online say things like touch grass, and it's like, bro, you are a leftist on Twitter who does nothing but just we like I'm going we go out on the weekends to various different middle of nowhere places often, and we talk to people, we ask them questions. And I found something really interesting with friends of friends, extended family members, and just people out in the general public. People that I know a couple of years ago who are passively anti-Trump have become passively anti-Democrat. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to vote for Trump. But a few years ago, we're coming on the back end of the COVID lockdowns and the pandemic and all that. They were very much on board with the corporate narrative. Then you kind of destroy the economy, destroy their trust, force them to do things they didn't want to do, lock them in a box. And now I'm talking to some of these people and they're saying things that are passively anti-establishment, anti-Democrat. So I don't know where they end up voting, but if Donald Trump becomes once again, the avatar of the anger and frustration of these people, he gets their vote. Someone tweeted a good point that people aren't necessarily voting for Trump. They're voting for what the machine hates the most and fears.
that's it.
Yeah, I watched Trump. He did a speech today, I think, on Truth Social. 4 minutes. He talked basically about Joe Biden, and he called out the Biden crime family, talking about 20 million that they got from, was it China or Ukraine? Bidens are getting their money from multiple
all over the
foreign
place.
states. And that's what people are voting against. I think when you're talking about voting against the narrative, it's voting against a president who had a son. Our president's son was on the board of in a random country on earth, some Ukraine, halfway across earth. The president's son was on an energy board in some crazy foreign country, and the guy was a crackhead. What in the? And now it's at war with Russia. Like, what in the hell? Put these pieces together, and that's what people are voting against if they vote against them.
I want to jump to the story from Yahoo, Huffington Post. Jenna Ellis mocked for invoking God after getting indicted. Well, let her invoke whatever she wants to invoke. She tweeted, The Democrats and the Fulton County DA are criminalizing the practice of law. I am resolved to trust the Lord, and I will simply continue to honor, praise, and serve him. I am deeply appreciative of all my friends who have reached out offering encouragement and support. Jenna Ellis was a lawyer for Trump. Now she's getting roasted by Trump's most ardent supporters. We've got this tweet from Laura Loomer. Professional liar and Trump backstabber Jenna Ellis was indicted last night. For the last several months, she has been attacking Donald Trump online with Team DeSantis. She betrayed Donald Trump. I personally think she intentionally sabotaged him because I can't fathom how anyone can be as stupid as she is, and decided to support Ron DeSantis instead. She's been attacking Trump online for having his PAC pay his legal fees, even though his supporters are more than happy to donate to the cause. Jenna has called Trump supporters grifters, and she's been retweeting other DeSantis supporters who attack Donald Trump. Now she is crying online, begging Trump supporters to donate to her legal defense fund. Laura goes on and calls her vile and a liar, but I do think it's really interesting. I'm not going to say I can speak for Jenna Ellis personally, specifically. I have no idea. But there are many people who, hey, go look at their YouTube videos, go look at things they said when they were guests on TV shows, who advocated for action on January 6th, who advocated for Donald Trump's legal actions, who advocated for alternate slates of electors and all of these things, directly demanding it be done, saying that people should occupy or people should do this, that, or otherwise. How long do you think until Democrats in various jurisdictions start going after them, saying that they were inciting and encouraging, and those that were in communication with Donald Trump were acting in furtherance of the conspiracy?
Well, my thought is, it's tough to tell, but what they want is Donald Trump to not be president and for there to be order across the United States. So if they start persecuting the population, I think that will serve as a breakdown of order. I don't know how far, like when you get what you want, you don't want to take any more than that. You got enough.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that they fear they could go too far?
Yes.
I'm not so sure.
I don't
not
think
so
they
sure.
care how far they go.
We have not seen an instance of de-escalation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, where's the off ramp? What's the off ramp? What is the thing that makes someone say we don't escalate? We don't take it to the next obvious level.
Federal law enforcement raided the home of some woman in Alaska because she looked like another woman who went into the Capitol. If they are willing to there's a man locked up right now. It's been two and a half years without charge or trial because he won't disavow Donald Trump. He's in DC in prison. If they're willing to do that to random people, are you saying that they would just decide well, this guy's got 1 million followers on Twitter or whatever, and he was telling people to go there and engage in this behavior? You think they're going to ignore Alex Jones?
Well, if random,
Alex Jones was leading one of the rallies outside the Capitol building. But he said don't go in, but they're not. They don't care.
Right.
Well, they're not doing it to necessarily random people. The guy was at Jan 6. That's why and the woman, they thought she was at Jan 6.
It'll be the people with the wrong political
No, but they
opinions.
have.
It's not gonna be random.
They have done random stuff. I believe.
Not random.
I don't know. They have not gone
It's
after
targeted.
random people.
It's always politically motivated. There's always people with the wrong political opinion, so it's not random.
No, right.
So if you have the
But I think
correct
he's saying
opinions-
people who weren't at January 6th.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, I remember
I've
that.
heard that they have gone to people's homes that weren't even at Jan 6. And that's, to your point, what if I did a podcast 2 years ago and I said, yeah, I really don't care what happened on January 6th. Sure, it was fine. They can just come to you and come knock on your door and say, hey, because you agreed with what happened on J6, we're taking you in.
Well, I think more likely they're going to go to the individuals that pre-January 6th who were telling people to go there. And there are a lot of quotes that I won't say, but there were people who were advocating for direct action at the Capitol on these, now these people were never there,
Right.
but they're going to say that they were inciting insurrection. More importantly, there are high-profile personalities who were in direct communication with Trump and his legal team, and then went on TV or YouTube or whatever and said, either as guests or hosts, this is the plan, this is what they're doing, it's totally legal, and everyone should support them for it. They're going to say that person was part of the conspiracy. Trump told them we need to build support, use your platform to encourage everyone to help us, and they're going to say it was a conspiracy.
There might be people that wanted a march on the Capitol and a siege of the Capitol and then a prevention of the legal process. There might be people that did that, but a lot of those people were just there, and that emergent phenomenon of mob mentality took over. A lot of people were waved in by cops. I've heard
Cops were taking selfies with people.
Yeah, it wasn't like everyone went there to overthrow the government. That's not what happened. A lot of people got wrapped up in this. And I don't even know if Donald Trump wanted to overthrow the government. I don't know.
This is the point.
Sorry,
No,
Anthony,
I don't think he did.
If they're willing to go after some 60-year-old dude who walked around outside and didn't even go in the building, there are people who are criminally charged who never entered the building, but they were on the grounds, and that's good enough. If they're going to go after them,
they went
to the extent where they went to a woman's house in Alaska and she wasn't even in the building and raided her home.
She was actually in Washington, though.
She was in Washington at like Trump's at the Trump speech or whatever, but she never went in the Capitol building. She looked like someone because she had like a similar coat, so they raided her house.
Well, there's people that were saying that there were hot dog vendors there, like there were people that were playing music. They went for people that were on the outskirts of all of this that was going on. Like if you were in a picture, oh yeah, we know that we see that person. We're gonna go ahead and you're arrested. We're closing your bank account down. We're doing this, doing that, locking you up. Whatever they did to him, I have no idea. I wasn't there, but I will say this: as an influencer online, was I asked by followers, "Hey, are you going to go?" I didn't think it was going to go that way. I thought it was going to go like a totally different way, where like we were going to get hurt because people didn't like Trump supporters. So I was like, I'm good on this one. I would recommend you guys don't go, right? Because maybe we'll get hurt. But they could go after all of the little guys like myself at the time that might have been like, go there. Let's go there. Let's it's just crazy.
I think it's going to be bigger personalities because as we move into 2024, their goal is to silence anyone who would provide public support for Trump.
Yeah.
So first they go for his legal team. Anybody who helped him. Many of the J6ers can't get lawyers.
Right.
Then they're going to target moderate to large personalities who are in the Trump periphery, who are advocating for and supporting Trump's presidency because they want to hurt that. They want people to fear supporting Trump.
Fear.
And there are a lot of people who used to be the most ardent Trump supporters who turned on a dime and are now saying Trump's a grifter and a con man and DeSantis is the light in the way. And I just think that's very, very funny because I think these people posted YouTube videos, where they were very, very on board with Trump. And now all of a sudden they're panicking. Right. I think they started to get scared.
Interesting.
I've heard there's background talk, and I try to avoid saying stuff like this, but I'm sure most of you who are listening have heard something to this effect, that people believe Ron DeSantis is a deep state plant. And it's a little bit of an exaggeration. Donald Trump supported Ron DeSantis, so whatever. But there are people who believe that DeSantis is supported by deep state elements, by these uniparty fundraisers, so that he can be the safe landing for Trump supporters, an off-ramp for them. They want total control. The uniparty will take control. Donald Trump is anomalous. How do you get people to stop supporting Trump and support someone who's your controlled opposition? Ron DeSantis does all the culture war stuff right. Florida looks really good. But then when Trump comes back, Ron can't manage the campaign and then he fumbles. But there are a lot of people who believe that. And again, I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that when you like backdoor private conversations with people involved in politics, their attitude is you see the people who begin funding Ron DeSantis, and it looks like they're hoping he can be more controllable than Trump, and Trump supporters will back him.
Well, the only way you're going to get a Trump supporter to not support Trump is do all this other stuff that we're talking about to him. Because then you won't have a choice if he's not on the ticket, right? So then you're going to go, then by default, then you would go for someone like DeSantis. Trump isn't going to lose his current supporters. He never will. Nothing. He can skin a cat online and people will have excuses for why he did that. And they're still going to vote for him. His base is strong, in my opinion.
There are.
And the only way you're going to get those, but the only way you're going to get, I love him. Like, I love what he did for the country. So for me, I never wavered from that. I'm a Floridian, so I think Ron DeSantis needs to fix what Hurricane Ian did to us last year before he starts running around the country doing all this presidential stuff. But you have to get rid of Trump somehow in order for his supporters to not have him to vote for.
There are instances of people that are like, well, Vivek's younger, smarter, faster, and he wants to continue what some of the policies Trump was doing. I'm going with the younger, smarter candidate. There are some people, I think you're right for the most part.
Yeah.
The people that are emotionally invested in a human tend to stay emotionally invested in the human. I personally serve a function. I serve the function of president, and I don't care what person it is at the moment. I want the best candidate.
Right. Policy.
Policy,
both
personality,
policy.
temperament, policy, things like that. Temperament's a big part of it.
Yeah.
The big part of where Trump's misgivings is that people don't like him, that he's alienated and insulted so many people that behind the scenes are like, yo, get rid of that guy. He's an asshole. Like, we don't want... That's the same thing what happened to Socrates. I'm not going to bring up Socrates all night, but that's the same thing. Socrates, brilliant man, poor social skills, pissed off too many people in high up positions. So that's a problem with temperament. And you need to be a grand unifier, presidential,
I want to read this
certain
tweet
level of temperament.
from Mike Cernovich. We have an initial tweet from J. Michael Waller who said, not even the Soviet Communist Party did this type of legal weaponization during its last years in power. Mike Cernovich says, right, we are in the early stages where Bolsheviks are shoring up power. The Cold War analogies don't hold up. We are in the, quote, the Tsar and his family are massacred phase of history. I'm curious what you guys think. Because obviously, I probably still trending on Twitter. I was trending all day for saying for like the 800th time you were in a civil war. But this one time, people were shocked that I said it. Oh, come on, it's a meme. But I don't know if civil war is a fair way to assess it, because we may not be in active war, as some people describe it. But I think at the fundamental definition of multiple factions fighting over control of government, you are certainly in something akin to that. And many people say, well, maybe it's a cold civil war. And that's a fair point as well. Or it could just be a Bolshevik communist revolution.
I've said a bunch of times, I think that we're in the middle of a cultural revolution in the United States, similar to the one that happened in China. So
A communist revolution?
A cultural revolution.
Yeah, I know, but...
Communist, yeah.
Communists are involved, that's for sure.
Yeah, the thing is that it's not communists like, back in the day. Like, the philosophies have evolved. So this is a you want to call it neo-communist or something like that, neo-Marxist. That's fine because it's a new version. It's based, there's multiple different kind of, it's almost like it's a religion, one overarching religion, and there's different sects of it. You know what I mean? So I'm not like, I know I've seen on Twitter, there are people that are upset that you said that and stuff, but it's like I've kind of felt like we're in the middle of not an actual civil war, obviously, because there's not, considerable violence in the street between warring factions, but we are in an information war.
But isn't there?
No, there's not. Like,
Not
there's
like
not.
this-
There's not.
Okay.
Because I'm talking about like actual gunfights regularly.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what they're the people that are upset. They're upset because civil war brings to mind gunfights in American streets, and that's what they don't want people to be referring to. And so I want to be completely clear.
Got it.
We are
But
not
here's-
in a civil war because we're not in. There's not gunfights over territory with factions fighting the United States government
in
and
a-
fighting each other. There's an information war going on. I agree with that.
Cold Civil War.
Cold Civil war is
We're in
fine.
a civil war period.
Yes,
There
those
have
I
been,
agree. I agree with, but it's not. There's not gunfights.
We've already had people killed.
Yes,
We've had numerous.
there's political
city
violence. There's
occupations, autonomous zones.
Yep.
Weaponization of government by one faction.
One faction arresting their political opponents.
Okay.
All of this. That's why I said earlier today. All the stuff that's happening here. People that are outside of the United States context, outside of the Western context, when they look at us and they see, oh, one political party is persecuting their opponents, they're arresting people, they're charging as lawyers, blah blah blah. They see that and they are like, that is all Banana Republic shit. And no matter how much Bill Kristol and the morons at the New York Times want to shove their head in the sand and swear up and down that America's different, the rest of the world sees right through their horseshit, right through it, because only unreliable, and furthermore, again, the fact that this makes America look unreliable only hurts the dollar when it's never been weaker, when we've never had more debt, when we've never had well, it's been a long time since we've had the type of income inequality that we do have in the U.S. There are a lot of problems that all of this stuff only makes worse. So I don't see.
Stephen Marsh says that we're in civil strife. which is the period that occurs right before a civil war happens. Civil strife.
Civil strife? Okay.
Civil strife is when you have, I think, what did he say, like 70 or more per year political deaths. And the U.S. is well beyond that. Most people just don't track these things. But what people also don't realize, and I have to say this every single time, there was a revolution in Egypt. 2 of them, actually, within like a span of a year of each other. If you went to the mall, you wouldn't know anything was going on. And because of this, people watch movies and they think civil war means you look out your window and guys in uniforms are marching down the street.
Yeah, it looks different.
Go watch the videos of the Syrian civil war where you see people walking around with groceries and going grocery shopping. Right. Like, people don't stop surviving and living and doing basic things like eating food and going to the grocery store simply because somewhere there's fighting going on. When I worked for Vice, we wanted to do this documentary on Syria. This is the peak of the civil war, because in Damascus, they were advertising tourism in the United States. We were getting ads for Damascus nightlife. And we thought that would be absolutely wild to go to Damascus and document how people were just living their lives while there's like sarin gas attacks happening 50 miles away. Highways being taken over. People were blowing each other up with shells and there's snipers everywhere. But in the city, you wouldn't have known for the most part. So because of I think condensed history and movies, people assume that there can't be any kind of warfare because the average person is going grocery shopping. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I witnessed in every place I've been to.
So does the southern border or any of the crime in any major city, any of that other stuff contribute to the current civil war?
100%.
So that's what I was saying.
So let's say this.
Because there is, I mean, the gun violence in Chicago and LA and New York is kind of civil war.
The southern border, I think, is the biggest component that people should consider when it comes to the escalation into civil war. Let's say that by hard definitions, we are in civil strife, as Stephen Marsh described it in his book titled The Next Civil War. He's actually he described himself as a multicultural democracy kind of guy and more in favor of the liberal worldview. So be it. And he says we're not quite in civil war yet, civil strife. Let's say that's the case. There's various scenarios that could occur which will lead us into full-scale civil war. And it's not going to be this ridiculous, I hereby declare, and banging a gavel on a podium. Right. That's nonsense. What it's going to be is that groups of militia will start forming on the southern border because of the crisis. You've got an old man. Traffickers were crossing his property. They get shot and killed. I don't know if he's the one who did it. They arrest him. The guy, his own land, his own property. Traffickers coming across his property. He defends his property. They arrest him. He's going to go to prison. Eventually, you're going to have people say the federal government has abandoned us. There's no law enforcement down here, and the drug and human traffickers are running rampant. We've already had, what do they call themselves, the Minutemen in the past and various militia groups. Mm-hmm. At what point do they actually then just assert territory? And all of a sudden, this could already be happening right now, by the way, because these stories have been persistent for the past 10 years or so. Right now, there could be a faction of people on a certain point of the southern border, say Arizona. Arizona is probably a good state for it. That there's open barrierless border, and they don't recognize federal authority because the federal government's abandoned them. Like, I'll put it this way. They're not actively planting flags and saying there's no government. They're saying that doesn't pertain to us. I don't care. They then start acting on their own behalf. What happens when one of these groups sees someone smuggling children, traffickers,
which happens a lot,
all the time, and they stop these traffickers? A gunfight breaks out and they kill these guys. And then the federal government tries to arrest them. The thing about civil war is that it's not going to be, people have this view of civil war because of the American Civil War, that it'll be 2 factions who will all sign treaties together and various states will be like, we're all working together and shake hands. No. When in reality, it's going to be various factions within states. And if you take a look at how Syria devolved into civil war, it was various factions fighting the government, and they all had different perspectives and views and eventually started coming together. And I think that was the Free Syrian Army. I could be wrong. We could see something similar where you have pockets, you have groups that feel the federal government is derelict or is illegitimate. The indictments against Donald Trump at the federal level, if Trump is removed from the ballot, how soon until sentiment grows in various rural areas where they're like, we don't answer to you anymore. You are not the government. It takes only 10 guys or so to assert that ideology, that worldview, that if Donald Trump is removed from the ballot, then whoever's in office is not the actual government. Confidence shatters. One of the things I think they're trying to do with the indictments is to maintain confidence that their power is absolute. But that does not work. It never works. That just leads to rapid destabilization. The Soviet Union only lasted 69 years. Perhaps we get a Bolshevik-style revolution in the United States. Democrats and their crackpot neo-Marxists gain power, and it lasts 30 years. Who knows? Or maybe when that does happen, you will get various roaming factions of individuals in rural areas that don't answer to the federal government anymore, and the federal government can't contain them and starts to ignore them. People need to understand the amount of personnel in the federal government is not large enough to contain widespread unrest, not at the urban level, but at the rural level, where people are just simply saying, we don't answer to you. Or they put up checkpoints, or they just outright stop paying taxes or something like that.
I mean, didn't they set up like, what was it, Chaz a thing? Remember when they set up that whole?
Yeah.
How many
The
days did that
autonomous
go?
zone.
The autonomous. I mean, how many days
The
did that?
George Floyd autonomous zone, I think, was like a year or two.
So why wouldn't that
That's
happen?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Drone strikes.
exactly.
I mean, you can
Drone
kind of.
strike in a city?
I wouldn't put it past them, man.
Imagine,
yeah, right.
Imagine what would happen. And this is a point James Lindsay makes, that the reaction is the goal. That
point.
either they're trying to force you to allow perverts to groom your children, or they get you to react and claim you're hateful bigots, and they use it as justification.
That part.
Imagine the inverse. Imagine a group of right-wing conservative types who are peacefully occupying land that is controlled by the federal government. The Bundys, for instance, remember all that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's actually scheduled to go back to jail, I think, on Thursday or something.
Go back to jail?
Let me confirm that, but I read that. Yeah.
But and I don't
Ammon
want to
Bundy.
conflate it necessarily. That was a different circumstance. But imagine there's swaths of federal land that are completely unused, but it's federal land. And a group of guys are just like, we're going to start utilizing this. We don't recognize the authority of the government. What's the government going to do? Imagine they show up and drone strike, as Ian suggests.
Yeah.
That reaction will result in more people having their confidence shattered in government.
Ammon Bundy was arrested 3 days ago
For what?
defamation,
What?
and he was released yesterday.
Wait.
Can't move
Arrested for
property.
defamation? That's a civil tort. That's not a criminal act.
Arrest warrant since mid-April after an Ada County, Idaho judge found him in contempt of court for
Contempt.
refusing to show up to legal proceedings.
Interesting.
For nearly a year. So that he just got let out yesterday. Can't move property or large cash sums for 2 weeks.
Eventually, you're just going to have a community. I mean, you look at Rich Men North of Richmond, the viral power of the song, 10 million views in a couple days.
Wow.
Confidence shattered in government is what leads to civil war. Not a group of people who are organized and then sign a document and say, we hereby declare. It's when random people just say, you're illegitimate, get off my property. I'll put it this way. If a guy showed up to your house, let's say you got an acre in a suburban area or rural area, and one day a guy being carried in what are those things called where it's got the sticks and the guys carry it and the guy sits in the middle? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's say
Oh, like a throne?
Yeah.
it's not a throne. It's called something else.
I don't know the word.
They're carrying him.
Egyptian stuff.
He says, put me down, put me down. They put him down. He walks onto your property and says, you will now tithe. You will pay me 20% for I am your king. What?
All right, what are you talking?
What are you talking about? No, you're not.
Right.
What if a guy walked onto your property, flashed a badge, and said that he was the neo lord declared of the current region or whatever? You'd be like, wait, what? Like, what's this badge? That would be a little bit confusing. Most people don't know what a comptroller is. So if someone shows up with a badge and says they're in charge, a lot of people right now are just like, okay. We still do have in the United States people being like, look, I don't know who you are, show me a warrant, but a lot of people just submit. The point comes when there will be a legitimate law enforcement officer from an agency no one's heard of or doesn't care about, or even from, let's say, like the FBI, and people just don't respect them because they feel when the FBI goes after Donald Trump in this way and they see on news that it appears to be completely political and illegitimate, they say these people aren't actually enforcing the law anymore. Mm-hmm. Why would I? The only reason why you'd agree to do anything they say is out of fear of death. Well, there's a lot of people that don't, and that's terrifying. They don't fear death. Mm-hmm. So what happens when there's a morbidly obese 70-year-old guy who's posting online that he's going to take action against the government very serious ways that people should not do? Then they show up to his house. What does he do? The latest report on that guy out of Provo, Utah, was that he had a loaded .357 Magnum pointed at the federal officers. That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. There is a path to victory that is through the legal system, is by electing Donald Trump They can't, they're not guaranteed victory. This is why they're indicting his lawyers. They want a reaction. They want people to get violent. They are desperate for it because people are shifting towards Trump. Trump is winning in the polls in many states. Like I said, over the past year or so, people went from being passively anti-Trump to passively anti-Democrat, anti-establishment. I'm not saying they're voting for Trump. I'm saying that they're losing confidence and they are desperate to maintain it. One of the only ways they get it is if Trump supporters go nuts. So they're hoping that by going after Trump, they get that.
You said an interesting thing, that they're not anti-Democrat, they're anti-establishment. And the establishment used to be Republican in 2006. It was George Bush's establishment, warmongering party. For whatever reason, these business bureaucrats behind the scenes now snagged onto the Democratic Party. Super delegates make it nice because they can just pick their candidate no matter who gets voted what. And people are tired of it. We're having a global revolution right now of artificial intelligence, of conscious, just the way people think since the internet's been developed, the way people interface with each other. And we need a government to catch up to that.
Mike Cernovich made a really important point. He said, did you know that the Republicans currently have a comparable majority to what Nancy Pelosi had when she was targeting Trump with all these proceedings?
The Republicans just have to have the nuts to do something.
No, Republicans have balls of steel. Don't you understand? Kevin McCarthy has ironclad testicles. People just don't understand. He's not on your side.
Yeah, he's
He is standing in front of your face with a shit-eating grin, smiling, saying, "I'm here for you," while holding his hand behind his back with his fingers crossed. It takes balls to look into the eyes of an American citizen and say, "I'm working for you," but knowing deep down inside you are lying, desperately trying to protect the uniparty establishment.
Yeah. I think also there's a shift too when you start to see what's going on in Hawaii right now and the negligence of Joe Biden and how they're responding to, the effort to get them supplies and money and like the local government. Like, I think that things that Joe Biden is also dropping the ball on is another push for people to be like, yeah, I'm just done with this guy. Like, Trump comes out with, a statement yesterday and does what, like 3-minute video or something about Hawaii, and people are like, why didn't Biden do this? And this guy's not even the president right now.
I don't know what the federal response has been exactly. I would like to know. But I feel like this is like a call up the Navy strategy where you like mobilize the Navy to protect and preserve that area of the United States, because not only are people suffering, 1,300 people still haven't been found, 70 people have been declared dead or something like that. The entire city of Lahaina has been burned to the ground for the most part. Not only that, it's a national defense vulnerability to have a broken area of your country that's not functioning. It's an easy target. So they need to protect it.
While your president is on the beach. He's on vacation.
It's almost like they're doing everything in their power. One of the things we talked about a few years ago is that they want civil war so they can abolish the Constitution, because that's the only way you do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a push to, I know that people are pretty aware that the definitions of words have been shifting considerably the past 5-10 years. People have noticed that things don't mean what they used to mean or whatever. And there's a tactic in that too. If you can shift the meanings of the words that are in the Constitution,
then the law changes.
Then you can change the meaning of the law. If you can get general,
like woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And if the thing that was pointed out, I heard James Lindsay talking about this, but it was the land dedications that you hear. If you can convince people that they're on stolen land, then they don't own that property because it's illegitimately attained. And that means you're not protected. None of your rights are protected if you're on stolen property. That means you have no right to that property anymore. And so now I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going on, that that's the intent behind it, but that could be a very happy side effect that people could use to go after people's property.
You guys remember John Teeter? We talked about it
no.
briefly.
Tell me.
It was back in the 2000s. This guy claiming to be from the future.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a website, and it was silly nonsense. But one of the things he said was that the country would fracture into 4 different regions controlled by 4 different powers. Europe would control a faction, China would control a faction, Mexico and Canada would split a faction. It seems to be silly nonsense, but I bring it up because I don't think a revolution is possible in the United States because the country is much too big. Mm-hmm. That's just it. You look at what's going on with the Biden DOJ ignoring Lahaina. with him, with his son and the corruption, with the DOJ going after Donald Trump, you're not going to get every state in this country to be like, well, that's legitimate. After 2024, here's my concern. There's not going to be a definitive winner. It could be like 1876 was the year where they were like, who do we count? And it'll be akin to this. Why? Let me ask you guys. Why should I assume the 2024 election will be handled better than 2020?
I think it would be worse.
Any reason?
I would encourage you to not to assume anything in that regard.
I feel like the fact that there's not all of the issues with COVID might be a reason to.
Well, they're trying to do that again, though.
Well,
No.
we'll see.
Donald Trump makes a bunch of claims. There's ballot fraud, et cetera, et cetera. Why would I assume the Trump supporters would say less? I can't just no. The assumption is clear. There's no off ramp, as if you said earlier, Phil. Mm-hmm. The likelihood is that in 2024, you are going to have insane disputes over who are the official electors, because Trump supporters feeling slighted from 2020 are going to be out in force with, and I'm talking about lawyers, documents filed pre, during, after. And then you're going to have legal challenges to a certified slate of electors. There's going to be 300 legal challenges in the courts that aren't going to be resolved in time. And they're going to go, how do we count something that's currently in legal dispute? The judges would have to just throw all of the lawsuits off the docket, which they can't just do. My assumption is 2024 will be bedlam. I don't see Democrats and Republicans just being like, well, let me know what you think with the ballots, and then we'll see who the president is. You're going to have Mark Elias. You're going to have the NCLU. You're going to have various factions on left and right lodging lawsuit after lawsuit in various jurisdictions before, during, and after the election. And then what's going to happen is various different news sources that are at odds with each other will report various different things. And you'll have people in some areas being like, I'm hearing the Democrats won, but the Republicans have electors too. They're being, the state legislature certified the Republicans, but the media said the Democrats won. What's going on?
Oh.
Now, look, don't get me wrong. I mean, maybe nothing happens. I don't know.
Well, you said earlier that you thought it would be impossible for a revolution to occur in the United States. And I guess I got to define...
No, hold on. What I'm saying
challenging
is,
because of the size?
If D.C. was taken over by an occupying force and a military coup, Texas doesn't go along with that. That's what I'm saying. There's no point where the entire country just says, revolution, now we're under the rule of communists.
When I say revolution, I'm not always talking about a change in government and formate like a government, like from a democracy or from a republic to a communist state. I'm not talking about necessarily like that. It's a revolution is like a change. It means to turn forward. So like a change of the mind. I know this is like a Maoist tactic. We're going to change the minds of the people. But I do think that can be done for good as well. It can happen quickly with the internet.
I have such a problem with that kind of like changing minds, because that's trying to manufacture consent or trying to get everybody on the same page. The ability that humans have to influence people is only either coercion or it's just through argumentation. Well, what about convincing someone or forcing them?
But what about when you perform? Like I saw you singing in front of like 10,000 people or something. Like it changed them.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee. Yeah, that's. I mean, you can entertain people. Entertaining people and convincing people to believe in your philosophy is totally different. And the idea that you could get someone just on a stage to use charisma to convince people, that's a bad thing too. Like, I mean, because like Hitler was super charismatic, but he was also a genocidal maniac, so you can't just say, oh, this person makes me feel good. Like I was saying earlier today, my philosophy is fundamentally an enlightenment philosophy, because I believe that we can interact with reality, we can see reality, and we can test things, and we can reason proper results. And if we just go by feeling and just by saying, oh, this guy really moves me, then you end up with Barack Obama. Everybody that voted for Barack Obama voted for hope and change. They were voting with their heart. They were voting, I believe in Barack Obama. I believe in people. I believe in hope and change because I am hopeful and we can change things for the better. Nobody agreed on what change was. Nobody did. But everybody felt real good about it. We need to have people.
So we were coerced.
Well, I mean, we were. I mean, it was.
I don't know.
Some people could say
We're like, oh,
coerced, but it was
he's
lied
great.
to.
He's cool. He's a cool talker. He's a good talker. He's cool. He smokes cigarettes outside the White House.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
this guy is awesome. I could party with him. I'm totally want change. I'm going to vote for him.
Yes, I mean that is true.
So
The votes for Barack Obama were very much votes for his charisma and stuff like that. And you know, there were a lot of things that changed from when he was running to when he was in office and stuff. So, you know, I mean that is true. But you still, like, we need to have people that. We need to be able to reason, not just get wrapped up in we feel this way and we want to have this kind of emotional reaction and try to connect with people and convince them and get everybody fired up. I mean, you do want people that are motivated, that agree with you, but you want people that have reasoned their way to their decisions, not responded emotionally, you know?
Do you think, I think, and I should say that if someone could stand up on a stage, fully charismatic, get everyone's hearts aligned, and then provide them a blueprint of strategy, technically, of how to solve the system, and like put it out of their hands. They've galvanized the populace to focus on an idea that's outside of the person. That could spark a consciousness. It's not just the brain. It's like a whole full body. You know, people start working out. They start eating healthier. They start having kids.
It's a cultural
I
thing.
think everybody's tired. I think Americans are tired. They're tired of being lied to by both sides. They're tired of being constantly gaslighted. They're tired of being promised things. They're tired of being locked up in their houses and lied to, coerced into doing things that they don't want. I think they're tired. And there's no way to go back to, like, how can we get everybody on the same page? Unity. You're never going to get that anymore.
Because of the fatigue.
It's just, they're just disgusted.
There's a war weariness. I know. I've sensed it for a decade. Just the pain conscious. There's the dietary weariness that comes from overeating or eating crappy food that knocks your body out. It's hard to wake up in the morning. That fog, too much carbs, all that crap. There's that. Fasting is a holy tenet. I mean, we could.
We can go on and on about that, but I mean, Joe Biden. People are tired by Joe Biden too.
Let's jump into the next story. I want to start by showing you this image. I hope you all enjoy this picture. We'll have to open image in a new tab, and then we'll have to shrink it so you can actually see it. Wow, this is there you go. It's very tiny on the screen because you can't actually scroll around or whatever.
Man.
But there you go. It's Donald Trump, and it says revenge on it. Breaking: Trump to appoint special counsel to investigate Biden family corruption if reelected. This is the reason people want to vote for Donald Trump. You want revenge? I'll vote Trump. I'd like revenge. What do you guys think?
I would like justice. And if that means forgiveness and compassion along with it, mercy, apparently.
What is that? Depends on if it's Greek or Latin, right? Is that what we learned
I go
last
with the
night?
Greek. I go with the Greeks on these.
Yeah, let me tell you
Justice.
a story, Ian. Donald Trump said that he would criminally indict Hillary Clinton, that he would go after her. She'd be in jail. And then, 2 days after he got elected, he's like, no, we're not going to do that. It's okay. Donald Trump should have gone after all of these people with criminal charges because they're corrupt, evil individuals. And he didn't. Because he said, we're going to forgive. We're going to be like you, Ian. We're going to forgive everybody. And now they're arresting his lawyers.
I wish he'd said that. He never really talked about forgiveness. He still talked crap
No,
about
my point
Hillary
is-
while he was president.
He didn't prosecute. He didn't direct his DOJ to prosecute.
Yeah, but he didn't like make good. He just
Well,
stopped
Hillary
talking
talked
about
crap
it.
about him through her. I mean, they all do it.
And then he didn't go after her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he should have.
Because he
Yeah, he
said
should.
you
They probably
would be
told
in
him.
jail, and she wasn't. And she also denied the election too.
Yeah.
So
To an extreme degree.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it her campaign or the DNC that funded the Steele dossier?
It was her campaign.
Yeah.
Her campaign.
And it's sad
Creating
that-
the lie that Donald Trump was a Russian spy.
Yeah.
Stacey Abrams. How come she's not in jail?
Right.
I love that.
Exactly.
Brian Kemp is like, for the past 3 years, no one has brought any evidence of voter fraud. And I'm like, you mean past 5 years?
Right.
Because like you're excluding Stacey Abrams. What I actually said was, yeah, but you stole the election from Stacey Abrams, you Russian Nazi.
Well, do you really? I mean, you're allowed to question elections in the United States.
Not
you're
anymore.
not.
In fact,
No, you're not.
He's getting prosecuted for doing just that.
I mean, that might
Yeah.
be one of the things, but it's the
No,
Jan
that's it.
6.
That's
it's not.
literally it.
Georgia is not going after him over January 6th. They're not going after his lawyers for
Georgia
January
hasn't-
6th.
But I mean,
Georgia's-
that's why this whole charade began. Is because of that.
No, Georgia is going after none of the charges related to January 6th. In Georgia has no jurisdiction there. They're charging Trump and his lawyers for reaching out to state legislature. One of the acts is that They reached out, lawyers reached out to the legislature and said, you guys should vote on this and choose who you think should actually win based on the discrepancies. They said, that's solicitation of a violation of oath of office. Not January 6th. They're saying because Donald Trump had lawyers go and make the legal argument that they should take the constitutional path of upholding their absolute legislative power to determine who gets the electors, they said, so that's a violation of oath of office.
Did Stacey Abrams do that? Did Hillary have lawyers go talk to electors? I don't know.
So the Democrats had alternate electors and faithless electors.
You're also just arguing to degrees, not whether or not
I'm arguing that you're allowed to question elections in the United States.
Again, the point is
that's why
Trump is not allowed to, because Trump is being prosecuted, and Stacey Abrams has done this, and Hillary Clinton has already done this.
It's the way Trump questioned the election.
You are arguing degrees.
There are ways that can get you thrown in jail of questioning the election.
Yes. And Jenna Ellis, one of the indicted co-conspirators, was only charged on counts 1 and 2, which is, I think, violating the oath of public office and RICO. They're literally saying because she worked for Trump, she's guilty of conspiracy. That's it. That's it. Now, other people were charged with like solicitation of the violation of oath of office, specific things, but they're going after her quite literally just because she worked for Donald Trump as a lawyer. So no, you don't get to call a lawyer. And now it looks like the federal government's going to do the same thing. They're going to go after Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and a bunch of these people.
If you guys go out and tell everyone you can't question elections in the United States anymore, you turned us into a totalitarian state.
We did.
Don't do
That's
it.
exactly what
You got to keep the faith.
Saying.
I mean,
we did.
No, I'm saying if you go out and start telling people you can't do this anymore, you become a hand of the state. You don't want to become that guy that's black-pilled and tells everyone it's over. You can question elections in the United States. And there are legal ways to do that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, what you're saying is like we can't run around and tell people that you can't question the elections, right?
Right.
You can do that, but you will be, that's a...
Well, no, okay, of course. You can question the election, and then if you take any actions in furtherance of your questions, you'll be criminally charged. Sure.
I mean, it depends on how, but possibly.
Well, like you could literally just be the lawyer for Donald Trump and they'll charge you with conspiracy.
Yeah, but I think my theory or my hypothesis, if he hadn't told people to go to the Capitol on Jan 6, none of this would be happening right now.
And peacefully protest? That's the First Amendment.
It's literally many other groups and organizations did that worse. Like, I'm not saying it was right, but I'm also saying there's other organizations and groups that did that also at the Capitol. Like, they burnt down a church.
Or they tried to burn
Or they tried to burn down a church. They set fire to
Where's the RICO charges for any of these guys? That was organized and planned.
They were all let off of all charges. We still have guys that are still in jail from January 6th that were at just to say, the hot dog cart across the street. I mean, come on. There's got to be a point where everybody on both sides is like, all right, this is nuts. Right or no?
I think so.
No.
I hope so.
There is not.
I mean, that's why I'm into pardons. I think of it as if you don't care, if you really don't find some kind of like spiritual fulfillment in finding your enemies like forgiven, if you don't get that, then think of it as a hostage negotiation. And you want those Jan 6 prisoners out, so you pardon them, and then you want Hunter Biden pardoned as the hostage.
Prisoner exchange.
Yeah, think of it as a prisoner exchange. That's why you issue mass pardons. And maybe society will freak out, maybe it won't. Maybe it has to come from the top, maybe it has to come from the people first, I don't know. But it can happen.
I kind of think of it more like there's a guy running around setting fires, and Ian is like, if you please promise not to do it again, we won't put you in jail. It's like, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's like saying I'm not gonna put you in jail for all those fires you started. If you do it again, you're done. But we're moving forward. Let's not anyone light any more of those. That's kind of the mentality.
With the hope that they won't. And then what happens when they do?
Well, that's a loaded question. If they do, then you have to put them in prison. Okay. You can't just keep. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't keep playing the game. Got it. I don't know. It's wild to me. That's all.
Well, what's the next step? I mean, we've got a couple months away. We've got maybe, I don't know, 7 months until we start going to the primaries.
I think we got to record 1,000,000 to 1 because we need to become a cultural center.
That's a song.
We need people loving us.
It's a song I wrote that Ian really likes.
It's the best song. It's your best song so far. And it's just the beginning.
So full disclosure, I just started following your music.
Oh.
Love it.
Thank you.
I agree. It's great.
I don't believe it's that important. I believe building culture is important because laws are only enforced on cultural grounds. Confidence is everything.
Yeah.
If people didn't have confidence in the dollar, nobody would take the dollar, which is why the U.S. gives dollars to countries all over the world for garbage nonsense. And that's why I say that voting Republican is good because you need actions within the government to alter policy and things like that. But for the most part, what's going to change this is building culture.
Yeah.
Rich men north of Richmond, the corporate press is attacking it.
As a
Oliver
far
Anthony.
right wing, yeah, he's great.
Industry plant, fake, blah, blah, blah.
He's the most genuine guy.
It's like just a video of a guy singing.
Singing.
I don't even like,
That's the best thing for it, though.
but who cares if it's an industry? Like maybe this guy got signed a long time ago and they said, we're going to put up a music video and ask people to promote it. I'm like, okay, it's a good song.
yeah,
Have a nice day.
The left, the people that are attacking it are the best thing for its credibility.
Oh, yeah.
Because the people that are attacking it are doing exactly what he says they're doing. It's the champagne social, the idea of the champagne socialists, the rich urban people, and those are the people that, while they talk a good game about the working man, when a working man, or an ostensibly not wealthy, not cosmopolitan person is sitting there singing a song about the struggles that they're noticing in their lives, all they do is dump all over him, call him all kinds of names. And the lyrics really do tap into things that are on a lot of people's minds. But the people on the left, I mean, they feel like it's attacking them. And they're the ones that are making it about them because it doesn't specify
A side.
the left or a side.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a whole lot of, insecurity when it comes to the remark about Epstein Island or the line about Epstein Island and stuff. But it's not particularly right leaning. It in policy, but it is culturally right, and that's why cultural leftists really hate it. And I enjoy reading the people that hate on it because it's exactly
Well, because it's
you'd
like
expect.
the people that like you say something about, but you didn't mention them by name, but they're guilty. So they're like, are you talking about me?
Yeah, they feel quite guilty.
So it's, totally about you.
So
I'm a big fan of. I thought the song was very simple. If you haven't heard it yet, north of Richmond. It's verse chorus, pretty basic. But the guy's performance is out of control. We need that. We need heart shattering sound to shake people out of this morose.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, like I said, it speaks to the mistrust of the average, of the establishment by the average person, and I think that the fact that it resonated with so many people and went viral so fast, I think that's something that really has worried the establishment. I mean, you have Rolling Stone crapping on a protest
They crap
song.
on everybody.
Well, I mean, but they didn't always. A protest song, that's supposed to be something that Rolling Stone would get behind. It's protesting against the government. And like, in the 60s, that would have been, or the 70s, that would have been right up Rolling Stone's alley. They'd have been right there cheering them on. But they weren't because they're the establishment.
Right.
They're the propaganda arm.
Let's jump to this unrelated story, but interesting nonetheless. Minnesota town's entire police force resigns, leaving chief with 0 prospects. Goodhue, Minnesota, a small town in the southeastern part of the state, lost its entire police force after the chief and other members of the force handed in their resignations. I think we're a little bit blindsided by it, but we're resilient. We're going to move forward. This has been 3 weeks now. We have 0 applicants, 0 prospects. I've called every PD around for the youngest guys out there getting in the game. Nobody's getting in the game. If you want to keep the PD, and this is something we want to keep going with, something needs to change dramatically and drastically, and it's got to happen now. One Goodhue city council member praised the police force for maintaining law and order in the town of Goodhue. I can probably speak for everyone when I say that they provided excellent safety and security to our community, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And nobody wants to be a cop. So when I talk about what comes next, confidence, people believing in federal government, at least in this small town, and it's not the only place we're seeing things like this. This is just the most extreme example, the entire police force resigning. We've seen similar things before of mass resignations from various police departments. What happens to a town when they have no cops? Well, we can already see what's happening to LA and New York when the law says you can't arrest these people, when people aren't allowed to defend themselves or their property. But what happens when there's no cops? It's not what people think. People assume if there's no police officers, then you're going to have rampant crime. Actually, I think in small towns, it'll be the inverse. You know why? Because if there's no cops to arrest a criminal at all, the criminals already aren't getting arrested. That means there's no one to arrest the person for defending themselves, which means in small towns with zero police, people will start arming up. And then if someone comes in to rob their store, they get shot. Then this person says, there's no government. I don't abide by any of that. I don't know what they're talking about. They abandoned us a long time ago. And this leads to social breakdown and decay. But maybe it ultimately leads to more community building, because if there's no cops, people have to go talk to their neighbors to figure out how they're protecting each other.
Yeah, I think becoming a cop through necessity kind of is more noble than doing it for a paycheck. Doing it because we truly need protection, and then calling the greatest among us to protect is like, that's a calling. You know, like,
It's important to note the population of this city, it is a city, is only 1,176.
Did you see how many cops resigned?
Was it like 5?
It was probably
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
You know, when they said the entire police force is like 5.
Yeah. But I mean, they still resigned. What did they
Right.
resign for?
I don't think it says.
So, how do you feel about the law that's being passed in Chicago or Illinois, where illegal immigrants can actually become police officers now?
That's the first I've heard of it.
There's
haven't
nothing
heard
wrong
of-
with illegal.
Yeah.
Well, illegal. Illegal immigrants should not. Never mind.
Oh, so you
low
can-
pay and competition from larger cities was a big component.
So they're getting jobs in other cities. They're getting paid more, going to bigger cities.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
What's this
Within
law
Sweden.
you mentioned in Chicago? Do you know what the name of it is or anything?
In Illinois, it's
Illinois.
being passed here in shortly. I think it's November. If you are an illegal immigrant, you can also be a police officer.
Oh, yes, that's right.
That's J.B.
What?
Pritzker's new law.
Okay, this is from
Non-citizen law
Not a
enforcement.
citizen- yeah. So should we fill Minnesota's town with 5 illegal immigrants?
That's
Maybe
what they'll
not,
do.
not all at once, if you can help it. Maybe introduce one at a time and let them get socialized.
And you should. I think that people should, be like in the United States legally before they start working for the United
Well,
States.
could you
government.
go
I feel like
to-
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, could you go to any country in the world and just become a police officer tomorrow?
Confident that's a no.
It could be a way to earn
So why do we
citizenship.
allow it?
No, I don't know about that either. I don't think we should. I honestly like I'm super for like.
Point being is,
really,
are we
really-
this desperate, right? Are police officers like leaving the police force in record numbers?
If I understand correctly, I mean I don't have any data on it, but like that's what it seems like.
This is a House Bill 3751, in case people want to look into it. I wonder about like letting people ways for people to earn citizenship. And if joining military, a lot of like
They do
Rome-
that.
You can do that by joining the military, and I think the military is one thing, but just coming to the United States and joining a civilian police force, I think is different.
Yeah,
Right.
I've never heard up to this point that would function, but maybe
can-
it would be a good way to.
You can buy citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that people do is you don't need to be an American citizen to start a company in the United States. So they'll start a company, then they'll hire themselves and use that as justification for coming here. There's also economic visas where it's like if you have a certain amount of money invested, then you get to stay in the country.
I have no problem with people come to the U.S. that are looking to improve their situation and start a business or whatever. It's like that's what I mean. It's one of the wonderful things about the United States is we've always been open to people that want to come and
Of course.
want to be free and take advantage of the fact that we are a mostly free country. The problem is when it's like, we're just going to have people that we're going to allow people to come in. And then as soon as you get here, we're going to get you onto some kind of government, subsidies or government program or something. That's the bad thing. So.
before American citizens.
Yeah, Lily Taylor.
No, just at all. Like if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be getting government services.
but they are getting it before American citizens.
Yeah, true, but they shouldn't be getting
In
it at
some
all. Not about.
cases.
I don't think that there's a before U.S. citizens kind of thing in that. I don't think
Okay.
if you're here illegally, you shouldn't be getting
100%
services.
agreed.
like unemployment and stuff like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be getting those things you don't need. I understand there are people like, oh, if someone's here, they're paying taxes, etc. I get it. that is true, but to me, it's just not convincing. It's like if you're here illegally, you shouldn't get free services from the government beyond the immediate stuff that everyone else gets. Like if you show up at a hospital and you need emergency care, that shouldn't mean that you get sent to the police and get sent out of the country. If you need the police to help you, the police shouldn't automatically wrap you up like the regular beat cops. But there's a whole lot of DHS out there, and they do a whole lot of messing with your average people when they could be looking for people that have, skipped their hearings for whatever they call it when they come to the country or whatever. So,
I wonder what percentage of illegal immigrants are actually like superheroes that we're better off having in this country. Well,
superheroes are not real.
Not real superhero magic, but like people that are like superhuman intelligence, like very, very top of the level.
They would have
humans.
came here legally.
Yeah, that's
they have a brain to come here legally.
They're probably well off,
in my opinion,
successful in their own country, and then they buy a private jet to fly in and get a special class visa.
One of the bad things about people that come to the United States, the people like that come to the United States, if they're successful, people that are coming to the U.S. from under, people from countries that have lower economic, output and stuff like that, the people that are successful, they're needed in those countries. So if you're like a doctor in, somewhere in Africa, and you're a good doctor in the major city in whatever African country you're talking about, and you leave to come to the U.S., that's better for you. But there's a lot of people in Africa that were relying on you being the good doctor in town, taking care of them. So it's a double-edged sword when you're like, oh, we want to accept good people that can contribute to our society. If you're taking them from the third world country, which they have every reason to want to get out of there, I get it. But if you're taking them from third world countries, those people are the ones that are the most necessary to help build those countries that they're coming from. So it's just a struggle idea that people need to think about when it comes to immigration.
Causing brain drain on other countries.
Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely, you could argue that it's in our national defense to have the best brains. Damn be the consequences, but I get what you're saying. We're a holistic world, and we should support other nations as well.
Yeah, I mean, my grandparents came here the legal way. I mean, they weren't doctors or anything, but they came to this country for a better life. And back in the 70s. And they were like, what do I got to do to be a U.S. citizen? What I got to do? Just tell me what I got to do. And they did it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. They were normal people. They did it. They became citizens. They raised their families. They came here, So I'm not saying there's no good people in that bunch that are coming here illegally, but I'm also not saying a majority of them are probably the rock stars that you're talking about.
I think that makes sense because the super, super phenomenal humans will probably figure out how to get here legally.
Of course, because they're not going to want to go across the Rio Grande when they have all of these skills. They're going to want to be like, hey, how do I come here so I can, because I got all these skills. And we'll be like, absolutely, like, come on over. If you're trying to smuggle kids across the border, you're probably not the person that should be here.
And if you're one of those kids, it basically doesn't even matter. If you're like a 16-year-old, but you're like a super genius and you're getting smuggled across the border, like, that's not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's law.
It's a tangent.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
The cop thing in New York, I feel like, man, dude, they've already got non-citizen voting in parts of California and New York. That's it.
And Chicago.
Global citizen, one world government, whatever you want.
Do you think there's value to letting people earn citizenship through serving in like civil, like police and fire department?
No. Fire department, maybe, not law enforcement. Law enforcement, I think you've got to be a citizen. Yeah. Fire department, though, I can respect that and say, okay, we'll put you on the fire department or something like that. But the problem is there are people here who want to be firefighters and get paid to do it.
Yeah.
There's huge wait lists. It's very difficult in big cities to get that job. It's a good job.
I guess in situations like what we got in Minnesota where they can't hire a police force, like would it be reasonable to hire?
No.
Yeah.
To have a non-citizen enforce the law, that's dramatic erosion of your country, your social standards, your law. Yeah. A guy putting out fires is totally different.
Right, they're saving people.
I mean, yeah, just putting fires out.
Yeah, you don't need to speak English or know American doctrine to put out a fire.
You do.
You probably should know.
Yeah.
You know how to use a hose.
Probably.
You should at least
No,
speak the
you need to
same
be able to
language as the
communicate
rest of the team.
with the lieutenant or captain on scene who's instructing people on what to do to put the fire.
Yeah, you
out.
got to speak English.
You're
for
also
sure.
being dispatched.
Well, you just said you didn't have to.
No, you don't need to know American doctrine to put out a fire. That's a universal language. Get the hose.
Buckets. Yeah. I mean, there's 5 people.
Bucket
We just
brigade.
need 5 firefighters for this town. We got this. I think
There you go.
we can cover this police force, just this table.
I think we see a lot of this stuff. Cops resigning because of what happens. I mean, it's Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if a component of this, people are resigning because of what happened to Tao Tao.
Oh.
The cop who was simply present while George Floyd was killed got what, 5 years? Mm-hmm. So who wants to be a cop?
Nobody. Especially when you're, I have family members that were and are cops in Chicago, and during the riots, during the BLM stuff, they got bricks thrown at their foreheads, and they were the same cops that were playing basketball with the kids in the inner communities. So they're like, why am I doing this anymore? Like, I am a good cop. I don't need bricks thrown at my head and then no support from our chief. I'm out. Bye.
You guys listening, anybody want to be a cop? Put a 2 in the chat if you want to be a cop.
And then put a 9 if you don't want to be a cop.
Yeah, put a 9 if you're not interested.
Like, there's got to be an alternative number. You say 2.
There's got to be
People
like
put 1, I guess.
People got to want to be cops to be a cop. Like you got to have faith in the system. Be like, I love this city so much that I want to make it safe.
That's that's the real like caustic and bad thing about the ACAB sentiment. It's not just that like, you have issues with the existing cops. If your whole community has the attitude that all cops are bastards, who wants to help? Who wants to be a cop? And the places that have the people that are screaming ACAB the most are places that need the cops the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody wants to be a cop now. Do you think that being a police officer in a community that has ACAB written in graffiti on all the walls around, and you can't get the community to talk to you and help you find any, solve crimes or whatever? Do you think that any cops want to be a police
I love that
officer?
story from Elliot Page about some guy screaming and chasing Page into a store in West Hollywood or whatever. Because now I'm pretty sure West Hollywood has the community safety person advisors or whatever instead of cops.
God.
Oh
It's
my
like,
God.
people in like vests instead of police officers or something like that. So you can make this news story where you say, I was accosted by a deranged man. Okay, can we point out that it's the left that advocated for the removal of these police, so now you're even less safe? Have a nice day.
Where did ACAB come from? Do you
All
know?
cops are bad.
All cops are bad.
Was it like inserted like
It's a Gen Z thing. It's just like,
No, it's not Gen
It's
Z.
a- I don't know. I've never heard it since
It's been
now.
around for a long, long, long.
And
Has
then
it?
there's
Yeah, it's a leftist
1312.
really? I didn't know that.
1312 is ACAB with numbers.
Oh.
And that's where fuck 12 comes from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been anti-cop, so I didn't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
12 is a reference to 1312. So they're just saying F our bastards, but whatever.
Okay, got it.
and
Thank you for teaching me that.
okay, so that's like, I mean, my mind these days goes to like communist revolution tactic. The Chinese have implanted this in my social media, and now people think all cops are bastards, but they're not. It's like, but maybe it's more just like a self-hatred thing, like things. Because I was so critical of the United States in 2007 because I was watching the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan and hated it so much. And I was like, good, the U.S. dollar, we don't want to be hegemonic anymore. Stop being the world police. And now I'm like, what is that? Now I'm like realizing, what does that really mean? Like
Right.
if we just stripped ourselves of being the authority on earth, that there would be another one would step forward. So like maybe destroying our own home just because it's not the best, it might actually be the least worst.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because we're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up for you in about a half an hour. It will be on the front page of timcast.com. You don't want to miss it. If you're a member for at least 6 months or at the $25 per month level, you can submit questions and even call into the show to talk to us and our guest. But now let's read what y'all have to say. I'm not your guy, friend. Says we've now crossed the Rubicon into Banana Republic territory as of last night. No, it's Communist Revolution territory, not Banana Republic territory.
Checking in on our poll from earlier, we have at least 9 people down to be cops. So I'm encouraged.
Oh, 9
Wow,
people.
that's great.
Fox Tashikata says, I'm not your friend, pal. That was too fast. Cheers to Timcast crew. Keep up the good work. Really do appreciate it. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I finally got the American flag beanie. Now I must turn it upside down to represent the current political distress status of our country. And in these 3 years, the political landscape has only deteriorated. How of us have recently woke up just to realize the country has been taken over by an evil that will stop at nothing to gain power. Yep. Devin says, when will we get a guest appearance from the king? Need to hear how he feels about his return to the throne. It's long overdue. Hail to the king. And rooster emoji. Yeah, we're not going to bring him on to IRL anytime soon. He's now in charge of Chicken City once again. He has returned. And it's unfortunate. We buried Roberto Jr. today.
Oh.
He is now buried just outside of Chicken City in a chicken grave.
Wow.
I went and paid my respects today. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roberto Jr., he was, and his sister died. They were the first eggs we incubated from
So
the
weird.
chickens. Well, they were weak bunch.
But it's weird that she died right after he died. That's really weird.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense. They're brother and sister. They were incubated at the same time in the same way. And they were from the chickens had just started their adulthood, and it's their first babies, and a weak bunch.
They're connected.
Sure. Or that. Let's read some more super chats. Paul Tascalos says, as a general rule of thumb, I evaluate the veracity of a legal document based on attention to detail. On page 20 of the indictment, Act 2 is listed twice. They had 2.5 years to do this and couldn't proofread it? Not guilty. Wow. Amazing. Purple says, beep, boop, bop. Thank you for that. Devin says, Tim, what's your last straw? What would we need to get to in this civil war for you to leave the country or to pick up arms and fight? I don't know. I think I'd probably only be defending myself. I think self-defense. There's no answer to that. Leave the country? We're really close to the point where throughout history, people fled their country out of fear of political persecution. I mean, look, January 6th outright is an example of it. And it's fascinating how desperate conservatives are to deny reality. Not all of them, some of them. The DOJ is arresting people who walked peacefully into a building with the doors opened by police with no warnings, no barricades, no signs. Yes, I know, and I say it every time, there were people rioting on one side of the building. They should be criminally charged. Even Trump said that. But they're raiding the homes of people because they walked onto the Capitol grounds having no idea what was going on, waving little American flags, and then they left.
Plato fled after Socrates was executed. Plato and a bunch of Socrates' other followers were like, let's get the hell out of here because this is not good.
Yep.
They went to...
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget, too, that, like, it's the same thing is going on in Canada or happened in Canada with their truckers, right? And they had the convoy. I think they have political prisoners as well.
They do.
So,
Do they really?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure that
They shut down their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have nothing. But anyway, I think it's possible for people to flee the country, sure.
But then Plato came back 20 years later and founded the academy right outside of Athens. So, nothing's temporary.
A lot of people flee, return when things calm back down. But I hope people just understand that they indicted Trump's lawyers. I would be surprised to hear that no one fled the country. I don't know anybody who did.
Well, Max Kaiser.
Yeah, but that's for different reasons.
Economic.
Yeah, Max and Stacy went to El Salvador to help with the Bitcoin
they didn't
country.
flee. They went there to make it better there. They enjoy that.
Well, they went there to help Bitcoin and to embrace Bitcoin and expand upon it. And El Salvador has been doing amazing.
I guess people that are really fleeing persecution don't announce it publicly.
No.
And they don't talk about
They
it
just
publicly.
move.
They're just gone.
Just leave.
They just leave. But, you read these stories out of Weimar Germany, and you read these stories about people, Jewish people who live in the United States, and they're like, oh, my grandparents left before World War II. And it's like, well, how did they know? And it's like, because they could see everything that was happening, and they knew what the Nazis were advocating for. They got out, and a lot of people didn't and stayed. I read these stories of people who were denying. They didn't believe it could get that bad.
Yep.
They just indicted Trump's lawyers.
I know.
His lawyers. Yeah. And people are just like, oh, it's whatever. Whatever, dude. Please read about any civil war. Read about any revolution. this is the breaking point.
Is this the kind of thing, if it's a conspiracy charge, doesn't that mean that either they're all guilty or none of them are guilty?
I would assume so. No, not necessarily. Because one person might argue that they were never actually privy to the conversations and that they were wrongly charged. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this
I'm just
all
saying,
seems to
like,
stem from the fact that the belief that Trump knew that what he was doing was wrong.
If they will go after your lawyers, you have no legal protections in this country. You have no rights. They are just going to lock you up.
Correct.
A lot of J6ers could not get lawyers because the government is going after people.
Yeah, if the government prosecutes lawyers for defending people or for giving counsel, that's violating one of the right to counsel, the right to a fair trial. You can't have a fair trial if the government is intimidating lawyers from working with you.
John Adams represented the British after the Revolution.
Yeah,
And they believe everyone deserves due process. So due process is done.
But that's literally true. That's something like what I said earlier. The point is to strike fear into the population. Lawyers are going to be afraid to defend people that have the wrong political opinions. This is the behavior of the government is intended to frighten people and to spread the message that if you have the wrong opinions and you are vocal about them, the government is going to come down on you.
And the only right to the only right opinion is what we're saying is the Biden opinion, right? That's the only one you're allowed to have.
It's not so much the Biden opinion, but it's probably the left politically correct. Well,
But
Biden is 80. Biden doesn't. I don't believe he knows anything. I believe that he's being handled. So it's not like he's the one that's making the calls. So other people are making the opinions, and he's saying them, and he's the mouthpiece. But Joe Biden isn't wiping his own butt. Never mind. Actually,
He's sitting there like, I am wiping my own butt, Phil.
I really don't believe that he's wiping.
All right,
his
let's
own
read
butt.
some more. We got Infinite Soul Daddy says, can I get a shout out for my 20th anniversary? My wife and I love the show. Also, if you're going to talk nutrition, you need to find a legit sources. I highly recommend Dr. Lane Norton, BioLane.
Oh yeah.
Shout out for your 20th anniversary. Happy to hear it. Hope all is going well. Armored Jester says, I never called you crazy, Tim. I too am cursed with being ahead of the curve. I could be wrong. I'm just saying, all you have to do is say, here's the scenario in which Democrats calm down that ultimately leads to the point where Biden and Trump hug, high five, and wave an American flag together. I'm being somewhat silly, but just explain to me a scenario in which, following these indictments, Trump supporters say, guys, let's stop fighting.
DMT.
Yeah, I really doubt it.
Psilocybin. MDMA therapy.
Bo Bierneson says, next Casper commercial idea, we recreate the scene from Psycho where Ian is in the shower and gets pecked to death, violence, screech, and all.
Wait, we were just talking about that.
Well, no, but Ian has been converted by the coffee. So the next commercial needs to be someone else. And the question people are asking is, what would happen if he didn't drink the coffee? So I think what we do is we have somebody similarly waking up to the scream, running, but they go into the kitchen and they say, get the coffee ready, but there's no one there. And they go, crap. Then they run in and start trying to fumble with the coffee and they can't get it. And then Roberto shows up and they're like, I'm brewing it. No. And then it shows them backing into the corner. And then you see just the silhouette of the rooster pecking. And then you see like a silhouette of liquid spraying in the air.
Yeah, and you can see the coffee mug in the shadow.
And then you hear the weird demonic crowing. And it'll just be like, drink cast brew coffee. Yeah.
I like it.
Then the next idea is Ian walks into the room with his eyes glowing. And he says, hello, friends. Would you like a glass of delicious cast brew coffee? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, sure, I guess. And then one by one, they all drink it and then turn into zombies just like him and go, this is good coffee.
They'll be
Tastes
like,
very
mine's
good.
a little cold. I'll zap it with my red eyes and it'll be steaming.
And then you can have someone be like, wow, does cast brew give you superpowers? And then he drinks it and then
Yes,
he
it
just goes,
does.
Tastes good. Doesn't give you superpowers. Let's grab some more super chats. T-Rex Pet Shop says, has Luke Rutkowski explained why he complains so much but doesn't vote? One thing I always say is you can't complain if you don't vote. Tim, how many mealworms do you need, live or freeze-dried? I have no idea. I know I'm not the chicken tender. I no longer take care of the chickens. I used to go out there periodically, and I would feed the chickens, and they'd all run around doing chicken stuff.
Oh, how can we answer that about Luke? Why does he complain all the time and not all the time? Why does he complain and not vote?
Apparently, he came out complaining about DeSantis recently, despite praising him quite a bit over and over and over again.
You in the chat, Luke? Why? Why do you do it? Because he advocates for personal responsibility. It starts with him and his community.
Is that what he said?
No, that's just what I believe about him.
Oh.
I don't know if he's listening right now.
We will grab some more super chats.
Is it worse to not vote, in your opinion?
I only vote if I believe in the candidate. Truly, I will not vote in an election if I don't find any of the candidates sufficient.
Okay, that's fair.
But I will tell people to vote for a candidate I believe in, and hopefully that generates more than one vote. I feel like that could be more effective than one vote.
All right. Melissa Wood says, I'm more concerned now that they are hedging their bets on Trump being elected, and they are warning anyone that may accept a position with his presidency they will target, and Trump's left toothless. Interesting. ACDC says Trump has been charged with more indictments than Al Capone and John Gotti together.
Whoa.
Unreal. Yeah, but they couldn't get Capone on anything. They got him on tax evasion. Wasn't that it?
Yeah,
Yep.
tax evasion.
Anthony Brownlee says, I live in Georgia and I am sick of these corrupt politicians thinking they know what's best for me and my family. I'm ready to make a stand, quit my job, and run for office, but I'm calling for help to get started. Not money, just information where to start. Google, I suppose. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe you could meet with local officials, go to a local congressman's office and ask them and see what they could do for you, see what they can tell you. Trent Lamalino says, I had only plans to vote for Dave Smith, but with him not seemingly wanting to and everything going on with Trump, I'll vote for 45 Savage. Yeah, I'd have liked to vote for Dave Smith, but I want Trump to win. I'm not sure Dave is running. I don't know what's going on with it. There was like rumors of him doing it, but I don't know what's going on.
There's a lot of rumors going around the Libertarian Party about who may or may not run.
I've heard a bunch.
If I understand, Dave is not going to run.
Is that publicly known?
Well, I don't. If I understand, I don't think there's been any kind of like confirmation that he's not. But he hasn't announced, and everyone kind of is like running around, looking around for someone for the Libertarians to.
The rumors I've heard is that the Mises Caucus guys are trying to find someone, and their choices are awful.
One of the choices that I've heard is he's a friend of mine. He's a nice guy. I don't know if I've never seen him hanging out with libertarians. I've never seen him post about libertarian stuff. I don't know if he knows.
Ian should do it.
I don't know if he knows who Mises is. Ian's not very libertarian a lot of the time.
But no libertarian agrees any libertarian is libertarian, so it works perfectly.
That's as you were talking. I was like, how can a libertarian run the country? Because the whole purpose is that you've decentralized
You're not a real
the process.
libertarian.
It would be cool to go in there and decentralize the government, though.
It's a funny thing about libertarianism versus communism. Communists believe that every communist country wasn't real communism, and libertarians think each other individual libertarian are not real libertarians.
Yeah. As soon as you want the state to do anything, you're not a libertarian.
Yeah. Eeyore says, I'm curious if y'all heard of the gun YouTuber Brandon Herrera running for the 23rd District of Texas.
Yes.
I think he'd be a great guest for the show. Love the show. Keep up the great work. We have absolutely.
Brandon is the homie.
Promotional email says, don't know if this made the rounds yet. Marion County, Kansas, police conducted a raid and seizure of local news agency. Reporters and their equipment happened a couple days ago. And I believe the woman who owned it, while they were getting raided, she died of like a stress heart attack or something like that.
Yeah, I heard about that. I didn't know that it was a woman. I thought it was a man, but I heard.
Oh, was it a
person
man?
that died of a heart attack?
It was like an
after
old
the
person
raid.
who owned it. And then while the police were, I guess it's in like an illegal raid, they just dropped dead.
Yep.
Jeez.
Welcome to America.
Right.
Let's see. Chafed BM, good name, says, it is time for prosecutors in red states to start indicting Fani Willis, Jack Smith, Judge Chutkan, Alvin Bragg, etc. for election interference, then issue arrest warrants for them and hold them without bond. Anything goes now. Yes, but there's no GOP. They're not going to do anything.
They're not going to do anything.
So.
That's the thing.
Dan NS says, Ian, they want power. It will never be enough for them. Make no mistake. They want any opposition to them to be illegal.
Yeah.
Who's they?
Who is they, though?
Jesus.
Who is they, though? Democrats.
Yeah, that's such a
I got,
monolith.
I got to do this. Maybe someone listening wants to do this. There's that song by Jem from, I think, like the 2000s called They. Mm-hmm. And just listen to the song, and it's hilarious by today's standards because of what it implies based on the, like the ACLU and the SPLC and the ADL. Maybe not ACLU, but the ADL and the SPLC. And like, what are some of the lyrics? Someone's like, I can't remember the song, but look up the lyrics. And I was thinking it would be funny to make a video where you have the song They, any song that refers to they as a protest song, and then after every key line from the song, it's Kanye going, "Who is they though?" Because you also have, I was into Muse. I forgot what the song's called, but in the song they're like, "They will stop degrading us. They will," like, yeah, people know the song, and I'm like, we were skating, and the song comes on. They will stop ignoring us or whatever. I don't know what the lyrics are. And I just went, who is they though? And I'm like, there's a lot of songs that refers to they as people in control and power. And I think we just need a compilation of every song that's talking about they, or them, and then just having Kanye jump in. Actually, you could probably do a cover, like you could probably do like a full song where you make an amalgam of all these different songs. And every time that line is sung, you get actually in sequence with the song, who is they though?
Oh, and like pitch correct it?
Yeah.
That'd be great. That's doable.
That'd be funny. Where are we at? Crunkaju says J6 was in support of Pence to reject the counterfeit electors, except Pence was a coward and backed out, so we were left with Biden. It's not necessarily about even rejecting counterfeit. It's about the principal argument was that in some instances, governors changed the election rules without the approval of the state legislature, or courts did. And the argument was these electors should go before the state legislation. There should be a session where they vote to certify this if they want. And if they don't, then they make a decision. And Mike Pence was terrified that the deep state would come for him, as they're coming for everyone else. So there you go. Where are we at? Let's grab this one. Tyrion says, did Ian just honestly say Trump has poor people skills? He's loved by his employees. He's negotiated with his enemies and helped bring peace. They attack him because he has those skills and is uncontrollable.
Yeah, I didn't say people skills. It was, but it was similar to Socrates. Like he angers people. He some people are well liked by everyone around them, and some people are more divisive. So he pisses the people that he's pissed off is coming back to haunt him, I think. But like he called Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig in public. That's crazy.
I think more than once.
It's disgusting.
A fat pig. Triton 54 says the 117th Congress is in its infancy. Had to step over the dead body of a veteran to confirm the electoral vote for the presidency. Tell me again, we are not in a civil war. The argument against the Civil War as a term is that there's not discernible factions shooting each other in the streets. The argument, I suppose, is if it escalates to that point, they will refer to this period as a civil war. Right? So it's like,
yeah,
it depends. It depends.
It'll be like Weimar Germany with all the different factions fighting in the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worst.
I guess it could be, if it goes the Spanish Civil War route, you get a right-wing military coup, and if it goes, it could go the Nazi route, or it could go the Bolshevik route.
Yeah.
Pick your poison.
Yeah.
They're all awful.
People fighting in the streets before lunchtime, yeah.
Bitorin says, how does Trump ever get a fair trial by a jury of his peers? How many billionaire real estate mogul former presidents are there? Haha. Yeah, there was, people are looking up the names of the grand jurors, and apparently a bunch of them are die-hard leftists.
Oh, nice.
I just saw the video of the 30-year-old girl that was like the foreman on that one trial where she's like,
oh, yeah,
talking like this, and I was eating a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles popsicle when we indicted.
Who the hell saw that?
That was crazy. Her name's what? Emma or not? Ann? I don't remember. What is that girl's name?
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Patriot American says, Tim, in my opinion, the next civil war is going to be a mix of IRA guerrilla warfare tactics from the 20th century with modern 21st century resistance tactics like hacking using technology to inflict damage physically.
It's going to be all drones.
No, I think there's going to be like poisonings. I think there's and look at what happened in Russia with that influencer who was given the statue that exploded. I think in modern fifth generational civil war, you see things like that. There will be hackings. There will be industrial control system hacking and things like that. Power grids shutting down. But I think the escalation path for this, in terms of street level violence, I don't know if we get to that point where the street level violence is inherently worse, is substantially worse than where it was a few years ago. Because those extremists are now in government, or the government has become extreme to where they're just arresting their enemies. So you have Antifa fighting with Proud Boys in the street. Yeah, that's phase one. The next level is now the FBI is Antifa, and they're literally just going and arresting anyone who opposes them. So in that case, you won't see. It's a revolution. You don't see civil conflict.
Yep.
And then if they win, history records evil people were arrested.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the fascists were stopped before they could rise to power.
Do you think that American republicanism can exist on the global stage?
Yes. I think it's the perfect way for the world to operate. People have their own sovereign states. They can live the way they want to live. And then there are courts and councils so that we can adjudicate problems. Like I have no problem with international treaties and cooperation on solving international problems. I don't like the idea of a totalitarian communist one world government. I like the idea that instead of going to war, we file a lawsuit with an agreed upon third party, and then one country here's the, we don't fight over it. In fact, I would prefer if there was a territorial dispute, we have a soccer match over it. Like anything is better than blowing each other up.
Yeah.
Well,
Definitely.
right.
But who knows? KCB says, I unbelievably agree with Brian Krasenstein. Interactions IRL with political opponents are usually cordial. IMO, any future widespread violence would be aimed at the government enforcers who impose penalties on any dissenters. Wrong. Just tell that to Aaron Danielson, who was shot twice in the chest for no reason. Go to any political rally where whenever conservatives say they're going to have a rally, the left shows up and mercilessly beats people. Years ago, I watched them throw an explosive at an old lady who then fell on the ground, and it was an M80. I say explosive. People are thinking it's bigger. No, M80, dangerous, can kill you, especially an old lady.
Take a finger off.
Blow your hand off.
Yeah.
And she falls down and gets knocked down by this, and I'm like, this is nuts. Like, they're throwing mortar shells at people, at each other. It's the craziest thing that winter comes around and people forget what happened a couple of years ago. It's
It
like
is wild, man.
like-
How memory is so...
Yeah, you had
temperamental.
Chaz. You had them unload hundreds of rifle rounds into a white SUV, killing 2 teenagers.
Yep.
And they're like, but interactions are cordial. Dude, I want you to imagine the Civil War. Do you think that the dude who worked at the shoe shop walked outside and went, "Ooh, I'm gonna go punch my next door neighbor because he's got different political views than me"? That's just not what happens. Granted, in Syria, it's eventually what does happen in full-scale societal collapse.
I think what the super chatter was intending to mean is that when you have a diplomatic conversation with someone, you can get through to them regardless of political affiliation. When it's one-on-one, not necessarily in crowds. I mean, not at rallies and stuff. That's a hard place to strike up a conversation. But like here, for instance, on a show or something, you a lot of times can have really. That's why the United States has stood the test of time to this point, is because we've been able to talk about wildly different political views.
I don't know if I completely agree. I think it could be revolutionary in the sense that the left has taken control of law enforcement institutions, and they're going to use them to stop the right from getting control back.
But why are those people not terrorists? Can you answer that for me?
Which people?
The when you just explained that they're throwing M80s into groups of people,
They're terrorists.
Right? Yeah, but they're not,
Because
though.
their allies are in law enforcement.
There you go.
Right. And so Donald Trump was unwilling to use law enforcement to stop these people, and they are willing to use law enforcement to stop Trump.
There were official documents that declared Antifa a terrorist organization. I'm confident that actually happened on a federal level. So
on a federal level, Antifa's considered.
I'm pretty sure the
because
FBI
I'm pretty sure they're
considers-
still going after right wing.
Well, I mean,
people
they'll go after them both. they don't mind, and anyone who challenges their authority. I mean, I'm personally emotionally, I'm more of a right leaning kind of guy. But I don't like the government at all, and the government will go after left people that don't like the government. They have no problem.
There's a bill, House Resolution 272, calling for the designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. That's from 2021-22. Of October of 2021. I don't know if it's passed. It was introduced in March of 21.
Introduced and just sitting there.
The FBI the FBI has sufficient latitude to go after anyone that they want to consider a terrorist, and the definitions are loose enough nowadays that they can pretty much just slap the moniker on anyone they want, and the media will repeat the story, and then people will automatically believe, oh, well, that guy's a terrorist because that's what the government said.
The Xbox Gamer says, Tim, how about that Timcast clip featured at the end of a new Trump 24 ad? Saw it in a Benny Johnson video earlier today. I think the Don wants to chat. I have no idea to which you are referring. Does anybody know what he's talking about?
No, I saw that Benny Johnson tweet.
What tweet?
4-minute clip of Donald Trump talking, but there was no ads. That was on Twitter, on X.
I don't know if that's what he's referring to.
Okay,
but
maybe not.
I don't know. No idea how to find whatever it is you're talking about either way. A Benny Johnson YouTube video, Twitter video?
It was a Twitter video.
All right. Let's... Puppy on a Train says, I live in GA. There was a question here about mail-in ballots with duplicate signatures. One of Trump's requests was a signature verification to remove double ballots. Governor Kemp did a standard recount. That's right. That's right. They did remove some double ballots. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution confirmed that, but yep. Adam Helm says, ask Phil if he will sing the Oliver Anthony song sometime. That would be awesome.
The the
Richmond, north of Richmond.
North of Richmond. I'd have to learn it.
Make a metal version, metal cover.
It's screaming.
Yeah. A Better Future says, Tim, it's Muse Uprising. Thank you for what you do for the culture war, sir. That's right. Uprising. Yep. They. Who is they, though?
Still trying to find
They,
out.
though.
Jesus.
Yep. Yeah, I want to put it together. Just get a whole bunch of... So there's Gem They, and there's Muse Uprising. What other songs are there where they talk about they? In Richmond, north of Richmond, he outright just says, Richmond, north of Richmond are doing this thing. He's telling you who they is.
Yeah.
Who is they, though? People in D.C., politicians and political elites. Where are we at? Joshua Mosk says, with everything going on, we found out the government and the FBI suppressed the Hunter Biden story and a whole lot more. Joe Biden admits they had a fraud campaign going. Do you still think the election was not rigged? When did Joe Biden admit they had a fraud campaign going? When did they say that? What are they talking about?
I think they were referring to the clip when
Joe Biden said we put together the
mistakenly
biggest...
said, that he had like the biggest voter fraud operation going since like whatever. Great moment.
And the full context was he was saying we were stopping it.
Yeah. So,
all right,
great
everybody,
moment.
if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. It really does help by taking that URL, posting it everywhere. And head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member. We're going to have that members only uncensored show up on the front page of timcast.com in just a few minutes, and we will take your calls and your questions. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Conservative Ant, do you want to shout anything out?
No, thanks for having me. I had a good time with you guys today.
Right on.
And you guys can follow me at Conservative Ant everywhere. All over.
I am Phil That Remains on X. Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on Spotify, on YouTube, on Pandora. What's the other one? Spotify, YouTube, Pandora.
Mine's
Apple Music. There
Apple
you go.
Music. There you go. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Anthony. Good to meet you, man. And I am Ian Crossland. Follow me on social media. And I actually, on X, I did my first space today at 4:00 p.m. with Zach Voorhees. We talked about artificial intelligence, God, and went kind of deep. It was pretty awesome. I'm going to be doing a lot more of those. I don't know what platform to do it on. YouTube, you can do video. That's pretty cool. Mine's just introduced streaming. And of course, Spaces. Spaces has no video, and I know the face is nice, but let me know.
They're bringing Periscope back, if I understand correctly.
Awesome.
You can do.
Really?
If I think you can do it now. Like Elon's done it a couple times, so I'm not sure if you can do it right now or not. But
Very cool.
It's coming apparently.
Well, follow me there. Follow me on all those websites at Ian Crossland. I'll see you later.
And I am Serge.com. Looking forward to the after show. I have Ekis now, so follow me on Ekis.com at Serge.com.
All right, everybody, we will see you all at timcast.com in just a few minutes. Thanks for hanging out.